Not every legend is famous. Some ride quietly through history. They're easily forgotten, underrated, or simply too ahead of their time. While names like Harley and Ducati dominate the roads, some bikes once redefined power, art, and engineering, then disappeared into the shadows, and no one has heard about them ever since. Today, we're not talking about conventional motorcycles. We're talking about the machines that changed everything, but the world does not seem to recognize them. These are the motorcycles you never knew about, but once you do, you'll never forget about them in a hurry. Let's get right in. The Bridgestone Group is the world's largest manufacturer of tires and other rubber products such as industrial materials and sporting goods. But for a couple of decades, they also made motorcycles. They started building bikes in 1958 and were highly successful on the racetrack thanks to several features that were ahead of their time. You might be wondering why they stopped making bikes. Actually, their Japanese motorcycle competitors were also their customers when it came to tires, and the rumor is that companies like Honda and Yamaha made it clear that they wouldn't supply their products with Bridgestone tires if they continued to build motorcycles. In 1967, Bridgestone introduced the 350 GTR at Daytona Bike Week. As the biggest model in the brand's lineup, it had a lot to prove concerning its competition. The middleweight displacement market was crowded, and Bridgestone opted to distinguish its offering by way of its rotary disc valve induction system and 6-speed gearbox. The 350 GTR came with interesting features. Riders could use either their left foot or their right foot to change gear, and the shifter and rear brake pedals could be swapped accordingly. It had a 6-speed gearbox, electric start, and adjustable oil injection. With a 345 cubic centimeter twin-cylinder two-stroke, the engine produced 37 horsepower, which might not seem much, but for a bike that weighed about 160 kilograms and traveled almost 100 miles per hour, it is a great feat. The 350 GTR was not a success because they were competing with the same companies they sold tires to. But if you ever rode the Bridgestone 350 GTR, you'll understand that it was too good to survive in a world run by sales charts. The Interceptor is a British motorcycle made by Royal Enfield between 1960 and 1970. The 700 Interceptor, introduced in 1960, was a modified version of the company's 692 cubic centimeter Constellation model. In 1962, the company introduced the 750 Interceptor, which evolved constantly until the end of production in 1970. Long before the Royal Interceptor became the big thing, it was trying to break into the American market with force. The Royal Enfield Interceptor MK1 was that brute force. At the heart of this motorcycle was a 750 cubic centimeter parallel twin engine, producing 50 horsepower and a top speed of 110 miles per hour. It wasn't just like the regular motorcycle. Made with a high compression piston, twin carbs, and improved oiling gave it real fire. This motorcycle was built to scare Harley riders, but sadly, it had issues with distribution. Enfield did not have a strong distribution system like Harley did. Just when it seemed like Enfield was finding its footing, a Japanese invasion struck, and it killed Enfield. The MK1 was shoved aside even before it got a chance to prove itself. The next motorcycle on our list is... The 60s weren't just a British show, it was the decade Japan arrived. The Honda CB77, also known as the Super Hawk, was Honda's first sport bike. It is a 305 cubic centimeter straight twin motorcycle, produced from 1961 until 1967. Honda came in quietly at first. Small bikes, friendly advertisements, and a slogan that said, "You meet the nicest people on a Honda." But the CB77 Super Hawk redefined everything. It was sleek, modern, and lightning quick for a 305 cubic centimeter twin. It could rev higher than anything the British had, and it didn't leak oil, vibrate your bones, or break your back. It came with the speed that the conventional motorcycle didn't have. Revving at 9,000 revolutions per minute and 28 horsepower, it was able to drive past 100 miles per hour, leaving most motorcycles in the dust. It was notable for its speed and power, as well as its reliability, and is regarded as one of the bikes that set the standard for modern motorcycles. It came with interesting features such as an electric start, shifting 4-speed gearbox, and a rigid steel frame. The Super Hawk was proof that reliability and style could live in the same frame, and it paved the road for every superbike that followed. The BSA Gold Star is a true unicorn. It was the company's last great hurrah before the company fell into decline. Built for just 2 years, it combined the Gold Star's racing frame with the Super Rocket's 650 twin engine. The result? A 120 miles per hour masterpiece that looked like a gentleman's bullet. It was expensive, exclusive, and exhilarating. It was the kind of bike that made you feel like a racer on Sunday and a king on Monday. Built with a 646 cubic centimeter air-cooled parallel twin engine, it was launched in February 1962. It was one one of the final range of A10 twins. Using a tuned A10 Super Rocket engine in the double down-tube Gold Star frame, power came in at 50 brake horsepower at 6,250 revolutions per minute. The BSA Rocket Star was an incredible motorcycle, but it didn't last. Production ended in 1963 due to the development of new unit successors, and as Japanese bikes began to rise, the Rocket Gold Star became a relic of Britain's fading motorcycle empire. Speaking of motorcycles that did not last, next on our list is Italy has always been synonymous with style, and Laverda brought that flair to the motorcycle world with the 650. In 1966, when the company released its first large displacement bike, people didn't know what to expect. What they got was a revelation. A twin-cylinder masterpiece that felt handcrafted by passion itself. The Laverda 650 didn't just look good, it was built like a tank to make it unusual and turn heads. Its smooth handling and durable design made it one of the most desirable European sport bikes of the late 60s. At its heart was a 654 cubic centimeters air-cooled four-stroke parallel twin that produced a top speed of about 109 miles per hour and power of 50 brake horsepower at 6,800 revolutions per minute. But behind the chrome and craftsmanship was a story of ambition. Laverda wasn't trying to beat Ducati or Triumph. It was trying to redefine Italian motorcycling. Every bolt, every weld, every curve was made with pride. Riders often described it as the Ferrari of motorcycles because it was not just fast, but emotional. The 650 marked the beginning of Laverda's legacy, a legacy that still echoes through collectors' garages today. The Norton P11 is a 745 cubic centimeter air-cooled parallel twin motorcycle that was made by Norton Villiers from 1967 to 1969. Designed as an extremely light, high-power to weight motorcycle that could be brutal enough to survive desert racing, P11 was modified in 1968 to the P11A and marketed as the Norton Ranger, a road-legal version of the P11 with a more comfortable seat to make it suitable for normal road use. The motorcycle was a monster. It was surprisingly too light for its power, and it could blast across the desert. Irrespective of how fast the bike was, it still had other drawbacks. The seat was quite uncomfortable, and the motorcycle was shaky. But to the eyes of the public, it was a monster, and American riders loved it. Initially, Norton did not plan on making the motorcycle a thing, but after seeing how successful it became and how much people loved it, they decided to make it official. The Norton P11 gained a reputation as a desert racer in the late 1960s, but by 1969, other lighter two-stroke desert racers began to dominate the sport, so even though the P11 sold well, Norton decided to replace it with the Commando, and it was selling well. Norton ended production of the P11 series to concentrate on the Commando, which used several ideas developed on the P11 series. The P11 was never meant to last, rather it was supposed to be a tool to put Norton out there. Kawasaki had hoped to capture the American market with the W1-650, but unfortunately, this was not to be. The W1 was based on the Meguro K Series 500 twins, which were already a copy of the more famous BSA A7 twin. The American public in 1966 was not really ready for a mere copy of something they already had. They wanted something different. That difference would eventually prove to be the Z1, but not until many years later. The W1 was very powerful, producing 50 brake horsepower, with a claimed top speed of 115 miles per hour, but it was quite heavy at 398 pounds, and it could not really compete with the British bikes of the time. When developing the W1, Kawasaki was working with limited resources and old technology that they had inherited from Meguro. The 650 cubic centimeter vertical twin A10 design was common on European bikes like BSA and would make its way over into the W1, however, with a handful of major changes that were designed to make the bike more powerful and, crucially, more reliable. By the time Kawasaki released the W1, it had grown to 624 cubic centimeters from the previous 500 cubic centimeters, making it the largest Japanese bike in the market at the time. It also ranked faster than its predecessors. It had a lot more oil retention, an electric starter, and a more appealing look. The W1 engines also ditched the plain insert-type bearings and two-piece connecting rods for a design that utilized a multi-piece pressed crankshaft assembly with ball bearings and one-piece connecting rods with needle bearings. Kawasaki sold it heavily in the US market, marketing it as a competitor to Triumph and BSA twins. You might be wondering, why did it go out of the market so soon if it was so amazing? Apparently, Kawasaki launched the H1 and Z1 a few years later, which made the W1 look like a regular motorcycle. By then, the W1 had already fulfilled its purpose. It did not just lay the foundation, but it was proof that Japan could create big and luxurious bikes as well. Up next, we have the Vincent Back Prince. If motorcycles had royalty, Vincent would be the crown king because it was all shades of royalty. It could be equated to a luxurious car of the present day. By the early 1960s, the Vincent Black Prince was already a ghost of a bygone era. Produced briefly before Vincent stopped making bikes in 1955, a few of these aerodynamic masterpieces still ruled the roads of the early 60s, intimidating, elegant, and almost arrogant. It wasn't just a bike, it was engineering philosophy. At the heart of that strange, fully enclosed fairing was a 998 cubic centimeter V-twin engine, capable of 125 miles per hour, which was a really weird figure for its time. Riders said when you opened the throttle, it didn't accelerate, it took flight. The manufacturer, Phil Vincent, believed in a motorcycle that could be fast, safe, and beautiful, in that order. And even though the world mocked the Black Prince for its plastic armor, those who rode it swore it was smoother than anything else on the road. Today, seeing a Black Prince is like finding a diamond in a scrapyard. It is rare, misunderstood, and way ahead of its time. Moto Gilera SPA is one of the oldest motorcycle manufacturers in the world, established in 1909 in the small village of Arcor, Italy by a then 22-year-old Giuseppe Gilera. When Gilera started, they made a wide range of motorcycles and were heavily involved in international racing right up into the 1990s. Just before the Second World War, Gilera fielded one of the most advanced race bikes at that time, a 4-cylinder, double overhead camshaft, water-cooled, and supercharged racer that made an incredible 90 horsepower from just 250 cubic centimeters displacement. They decided to withdraw from competition and try surviving on their own in a world dominated by Japanese motorcycles. In 1966, Gilera seemed like a simple Italian motorcycle, but under it was a single cylinder of 124 cubic centimeters displacement, an overhead valve engine, and a 5-speed transmission, which was quite unusual for the time. The 5-speed transmission offered easier control and smoother revving. The motor produces only 10.5 horsepower at 8,500 revolutions per minute, but because of its light weight, it has a top speed of just over 120 kilometers per hour. The Gilera Model 101, which was its official model number, was made in a full range of styles from touring to off-road specials. This Gilera has never been restored or even seen any major cosmetic or mechanical work. It has all its original parts right down to the battery. When this Gilera was manufactured, smaller displacement motorcycles were very popular around the globe. Even Honda, one of the world's most successful manufacturers, largest bike was only 350 cubic centimeters in size. Unfortunately, Gileras were never officially imported into Canada. If a rider wanted one, they would have needed to find a motorcycle shop owner who'd be willing to import one specifically for them. Although the Gilera did not make headlines, the kind of speed it delivered was out of this world. It was caught between eras, too refined for how much it was worth, and too small to be taken seriously by the motorcycle market that had way bigger bikes. While some motorcycles demand attention, others move along with quiet confidence, such that you can't help but notice them. The Velocette Venom was one of such motorcycles you couldn't help but notice. It was a 499 cubic centimeter single-cylinder 4-stroke British motorcycle made by Velocette at Hall Green in Birmingham. Between 1955 and 1970, they produced about 5,721 motorcycles. It earned its recognition by outperforming others when it mattered the most. In 1961, a factory-prepared Fared Velocette Venom and a team of riders set the 24-hour world record at a speed of 100.05 miles per hour, which is equivalent to 161.01 kilometers per hour at the Autodrome de Linas Montelleri, a banked oval racetrack in France. It was the first motorcycle to average over 100 miles per hour continuously for 24 hours, and no 500 cubic centimeter or single-cylinder motorcycle has broken this record. What made it stand out was its ability to maintain speed effortlessly, cruising with ease. In 1965, the Velocette Venom was further developed with a full racing kit to create the range-topping Velocette Thruxton, with a special cylinder head developed by American flat-track racers and adapted by Velocette to create a new production racer. It was a very popular and successful Clubman racer, winning the 1967 Isle of Man production. The Thruxton became the most popular Velocette model, but it could not save the Velocette company from bankruptcy in 1971. Poor trading conditions over several preceding years forced the company into voluntary liquidation in 1971, with all the remaining stock and tools sold off to pay creditors. while others roared, the BMW R69S purred. It was called the thinking man's motorcycle because it was calm, smooth, and efficient. It was a 594 cubic centimeter boxer twin designed with precision, comfort, and understated power. Where British bikes rattled, the BMW whispered authority. It could cruise effortlessly at 100 miles per hour with none of the drama. It was also one of the first motorcycles to feature Earl's forks, giving it a rock-solid front end that made it perfect for long tours across Europe. To own one in the 60s was as good as saying, "I ride, but I also understand." First introduced in 1960, it was a higher performance variant of the popular R69 model, which was produced from 1955 through 1960. The R69S came about as BMW felt it necessary to begin focusing on enhancing the performance and handling of its motorcycles to meet the demands of riders seeking more power and agility. The R69S featured the same 594 cubic centimeter boxer layout twin engine as the more pedestrian R69. However, with some key upgrades, including larger carburetors and high compression pistons, power was increased to 42 horsepower. The bike featured a unique Earl's front fork, which provided superior stability and handling, especially at high speeds. It also came equipped with a 4-speed transmission, which was the first for BMW motorcycles, allowing riders to make the most of the bike's power band. Additionally, the R69S featured a full duplex tubular frame, which was not only strong and lightweight, but also contributed to the bike's excellent handling characteristics. Overall, the BMW R69S was a testament to BMW's commitment to engineering excellence and remains highly sought after by motorcycle collectors and enthusiasts. Today, the R69S has risen to the top as one of BMW's most desirable collector bikes from the post-war era. Thanks to its stunning good looks, easy riding nature, and legendary reliability, these motorcycles have been a major contributing factor to the upward trend in pricing over the last few years. By 1969, production was beginning to wind down on the BMW motorcycles, and many of the machines delivered to the United States were the R69 US variants with the telescopic forks, making the R69S version with the Earl's forks a bit more rare. Even though the BMW R69 seconds disappeared slowly, it left behind a legacy that cannot be forgotten in a hurry. Next up, we have if you've seen The Great Escape, you've seen the spirit of this bike, even if it wasn't the exact model. The Triumph TR6 Trophy was the motorcycle that defined the word cool. Steve McQueen loved it, and so did desert racers in California. At its heart was a 650 cubic centimeter parallel twin. It was light, agile, and fast enough to win off-road races, yet elegant enough to turn heads when it drove past. The TR6 was more than a machine. It was a lifestyle. When you threw a leg over it, you weren't just riding, you were saying something about who you were. Fearless, independent, a little reckless. After its successes with the T110 and TR5 Trophy, Triumph debuted the TR6 Trophy in 1956. Specifically developed for the US market, it featured the same 650 cubic centimeter engine as the T110, along with the 2-into-1 exhaust, 7-inch front brake, and quick detachable headlamp of the TR5. In the subsequent years, Triumph made improvements with their motorcycles, like adding a larger 8-inch brake and a stronger steering head, until it implemented unit construction for all of its 650 cubic centimeter models in 1963. As if that was not enough, Triumph continued to make further changes to the TR6, raising the compression ratio, switching up the brake shoe design, and introducing the infamous Amal concentric carb. Then in 1967, Triumph launched the off-road focused TR6C, also known as the Desert Sled, with twin high pipes, folding foot pegs, and blocky Dunlop tires. A year later, the TR6R came in, a road-going sport version with low pipes, a speedometer, and painted fenders. Today, the TR6 remains one of the most iconic Triumphs of the 20th century. Between its competition pedigree and its appearance, the bike has indeed cultivated quite the cult following. These motorcycles weren't just metal put together, they were reflections of an era. Every twist of the throttle was a heartbeat, and every mile, a story. Today, motorcycles are faster, safer, and smarter because they've learned from the past, and with the help of technology, have been able to make corrections. But something got lost along the way. The romance of imperfection, the humanness of the ride. So the next time you see a dusty old Triumph or a forgotten Honda Superhawk in a garage corner, don't walk past it. You're staring at history on two wheels.